Growing up, I was actually known as Gable. Kids throughout middle school and high school found it actually funny to call me Gable. What was at the time something that was very hurtful to me actually became a word of empowerment. So beginning in 2004, I started attending UC Santa Cruz. I was the closeted individual who then became the spokesperson for queer people on campus, which was hard for me, but it was also so much fun. After about 4 years, I don't remember who started it, but my friends around me started to lovingly call me Gable. And so at that time, it was something that was completely different, right? They weren't saying it to put me down. And it was at that moment where I think something clicked inside me, which was that word that used to haunt me was now an identity for empowerment.
I grew up going to India at a very young age because most of our extended family was there. So from, as a small child, it really struck me how much abject poverty I saw in India and also the blatant gender inequality. About 6 years ago, I found out that my aunt was HIV positive. And she was infected by her husband, and she didn't find out about her status until he was on his deathbed, dying of full-blown AIDS. But she also never knew that she was actually at risk of HIV because, perhaps she wasn't well educated about HIV, but also because of her position in society because she was a woman, and also the sort of taboo around sex in India. All these things put her at risk of HIV.
I was raised in a time where the AIDS epidemic was growing and didn't take long before it hit home. I remember very clearly in second grade, we would have show and tell. I got up and I told my tell, and it was that my grandfather had died of AIDS. And I'll never forget the look of my teacher's face as if she was shocked and knew that she had a lot of explaining to do to these second graders about what AIDS was. That made me feel good that even at such a young age we were able to have an open forum and try to get some clear understanding and dispel any myths or taboos that were circulating around the time about AIDS.
A new gay-straight alliance group was trying to organize itself at our school. Of course, no one realized that I myself was gay, and I took the school's stance as a message that if I or any of my classmates did come out, that we wouldn't be supported. Because I appeared to be a straight white male, people didn't censor themselves or their beliefs about people to me. I didn't really learn the significance of those statements and their impact on myself and on other people until I was in college.
I have several members of my family who are gay and a couple of members of my family who are transgender. And our family has always been really open and welcoming, but it was surprising to me how different I felt like the environment was that I lived in versus my family environment. When I was young, I had an uncle who got HIV and consequently died of AIDS-related complications. And I remember for me as a child, that had a very big impact on me, thinking about, I guess really my first notion of the injustice of it.
What first got me interested in researching sexuality was the time that I spent living abroad. The different ways the people in those societies and their cultures managed or dealt with their gender, their expression, gender role stereotypes, their sexuality. And it was kind of refreshing to see different people being able to behave in different ways.
I started out in the 80s when a lot of people were very sick and nobody really understood why. It was unbelievably horrific, and it didn't make sense that people were being treated as badly as they were because they were sick.
I grew up in a very rural small town which was predominantly white, and because of that and the things that I heard other people say, ways that they treated other people that may have been questioning their sexuality as well, I knew that that was something that I kind of took to and I wanted to do when I got older. Several years later, someone that I was involved in a relationship with decided to take away my choice and my rights about my sexual health, and I became HIV positive. And from that moment on, I knew that I now had a duty and responsibility to folks that were younger than me, that were in the African American community, didn't necessarily have the things that were afforded to them that I had.
I grew up with a large group of very powerful, strong women who taught me a lot. And one of the things they taught me was about accepting people for who they are. And then when I realized I was gay and I came out to my dad, it was the first time in my life that I had a negative reaction from my family and a sense of judgment from my family. And so having to overcome that sort of led me in the direction of wanting to do work that made a difference in the lives of people who were different. I moved to San Francisco 10 years ago, and it was the first time that I found a place where I could feel free to express myself and be who I was, and I want to make that possible for other people.
So my goal is to really get out there and really make a difference in the community. I want to start a research center that also focuses on service and provide sexual health related advice, services, counseling, and things like that in communities that are rarely reached out to.
What I want to see is a world where women have control over their bodies and don't have to justify what they do or don't do in terms of sexual and reproductive health.
A goal I would like to see for the future is an environment that embraces sexuality and gender as a part of who we are and doesn't hide it or keep it secret. And I would love to see an educational system that incorporated sexuality and gender at all ages so that people have an opportunity to learn about themselves and their bodies and their identities from a very young age.
In the future, it would be so much more easier for people to talk about these things and address the health disparities that currently take place in our country, in our community, in our society, if we simply just talk about them. So once we talk about it, then we can, generally kind of move forward and be more of a cohesive society and be a healthier nation.
Well, what I came to learn was that your issues, trans issues, or be it bisexual issues or lesbian issues, they're my issues, because we're family.
I hope that in the future we realize as a culture, as a society, that access to healthcare, being healthy, is something that we all deserve. And I hope that we learn as communities the importance of taking care of ourselves and taking care of those around us. Everything our center does is tied to that.
I think the work of the center right now on a macro level is breaking down barriers that prevent people from talking openly and honestly about how we view sexuality and sexual health, and hopefully address some of the sexual disparities that are going on in this country, because they're profound and we need to do something about it. We can't have another generation of kids that think gay people are different. It's just time to do something, and I think we're doing it.